Our reading is found on page 1061 if you want to follow it in the church Bibles, and is from Luke chapter 24, starting at verse 13, and it's headed On the Road to Emmaus. Now that same day, 2 of them were going up to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the 3rd day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus." He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going further, but they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the 2 told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread.
So much had happened. It was the Sunday morning when the women had gone to the tomb and they had discovered it empty, had seen the vision of angels telling them that he was alive. That same day, these 2 travelers are making their way from Jerusalem to Emmaus, about 7 miles, we're told, and they have so much to talk about, so much on their minds, so much in their hearts. And they're joined by another traveller who comes alongside them. It's Jesus, the risen Lord, but they don't recognise him. Well, actually, we're told that they're kept from recognising him. What was it that kept them from recognising him? It seems to be a bit of a theme in the resurrection stories. Mary at the tomb, weeping, mistakes Jesus for the gardener. But recognition comes at the right time, and that seems to be what's going on here, that it's not the right moment for these two travellers to recognise Jesus as risen Lord. There's a journey to be made, a physical journey, but perhaps also a journey of the heart. People have thought about why these two travellers didn't recognise Jesus. And some have offered the idea that they are people in grief and loss, shock, dashed hopes. And we know that our emotional and mental state does affect how we see things, what we see, what we understand. But it's clear that there's a divine action here as well. That Jesus is hidden, in a sense, to them. He's with them, but they don't recognise him. Now is not the moment for this revelation to come. I've pondered this a little bit, and it seems to me that Jesus gives these two travellers room to process all that they have lived through. He gives them room to talk about it. Well, he asks them, doesn't he? What are you talking about? What are you discussing on the road? And they reply, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem that doesn't know about the things that have happened these past few days? What things? Says Jesus. What is Jesus doing here? Is he playing with them? He knows what things, doesn't he? It's about him. And yet he asks them, what things? I remember a time when I was reading this story, and those words really jumped out at me. What things? And I sensed that God wanted me to talk to him about what was going on for me, what was troubling me, actually. And I remember saying, you know, Lord, you know everything about me, you know all that's going on in my world. And yet God seemed persistent, as if to say, tell me about it. Do you know that God is genuinely interested in what's going on for you? Yes, he knows all about it, but he wants you to tell him. Did you know that? It's like when you've got a really good friend who's going through a difficult time, and it's all kind of inside. And you might say to that friend, talk to me, tell me, because there's something important about getting it all out. Jesus comes alongside, unrecognised, but vitally interested in what's going on for these two travellers, as he is vitally interested in you and what's going on for you. I want to encourage you, not necessarily right now, but perhaps later on in the day or later in the week, to sit down or go for a walk and simply talk to God about what's going on. Don't try to find the right words. Don't try to make it religious. but just tell him what's going on because he wants to know. He really does. The God who comes alongside and says, what are you thinking? What are you talking about? What things? What things? It's a beautiful picture, isn't it? And there's an invitation there for us to walk with God and share what's there. And so it all comes out. It all comes out. Jesus of Nazareth, a prophet. He did amazing things, said amazing things before God and the people. But then our rulers took him and crucified him. We had thought he was the one who would deliver Israel, who would be our Redeemer. But they crucified him. These two things can't sit together. Our hopes that God would save us and the death of the one we thought would do that. That doesn't compute. It doesn't add up. At least not yet. What's more, it's been 3 days. And our women, they went to the tomb and they found it empty. They had a vision of angels and said, he's not here. He's alive. And some of our companions, they went and they saw exactly what the women had said, that it was true. Out it all came. In an untidy kind of ramble, really. Really interesting that in all that they said to Jesus, they had all the pieces they needed to get there. But they were struggling to put the picture together. All the pieces were there. And then we get this sudden rebuke from Jesus. And this is always a bit of the passage that I kind of think, hey Jesus, what are you doing? How foolish. How slow to believe the prophets you are, says Jesus. It sounds like a bit like a stinging rebuke, having said, talk to me, and out it all came. Jesus comes back with how foolish, how slow to believe. Maybe feels a little harsh, doesn't it? But I'm not hearing harshness, nor that Jesus is giving up on these disciples as they try to grapple and work things out. He's about to teach them. He's about to give them the mother of all Bible studies. I'd love to have been there when Jesus says, let's start with Moses. Let's start with Moses and we'll work our way through, shall we? And let me show you what you haven't been seeing, what you've missed so far. I think this rebuke is a kind of, guys, it's staring you in the face. You have all the pieces. Let me help you put them together. And so the Bible study must have gone on for quite a long time. It was a 7-mile walk, beginning with Moses and the prophets, telling God's story. Because although they knew the scriptures, they'd missed it. They'd missed the truth that the Messiah must suffer before he entered his glory. That the death of Jesus was part of the redemption. It was the redemption. What they couldn't put together in their minds. We had our hopes that he would redeem us. Our rulers took him, crucified him. Where does that leave us? Well, said Jesus, it leaves you saved, redeemed. For through the suffering of the Messiah comes redemption, and not just to Israel, but to the world. This was what Jesus wanted them to understand. And to get them there, he tells them the story of God. a little bit later in the month, we're going to begin the Bible course, an 8-session course that will take us, rather like what Jesus is doing here with his disciples, right through the story of the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, in 8 steps. And here's our opportunity to have another look, or for some people maybe a first look, at God's story of how he has saved us and given us life. And we'll discover when we get into that there are so many pointers to Jesus. That's what Jesus is doing here with his disciples. So many pointers to Jesus, who he is and why he died and how he saves us. Well, I don't know how long they talked, but it must have been an amazing experience for them. But they still haven't got it, have they? They still don't recognize him, not yet. Something more is needed. So they get towards Emmaus, to where they're traveling to, and there's this lovely moment where Jesus makes like he's carrying on. There's something just a little playful in this. But why does Jesus do that? Why doesn't he just go with where they're going? Why does he carry on and kind of look back over his shoulders? They say, hey, where are you going? Stay with us. It's late. I think there's something here about Jesus wanting the response of his disciples. He wants our participation in what's happening. In a sense, he wants us to want him. Jesus, stay with us. I know they don't know it's Jesus yet, but our desire for God to be with us, to walk with him. Anyway, at the table, that's where it happens. It wouldn't have been a table like this, it would just have been a meal. When it says that Jesus broke bread, it means that common understanding we have of breaking bread. We share a meal together. But there was something about the way Jesus took, blessed, broke, and gave the bread. In that moment, the penny drops, their eyes are opened, they recognize who they've been walking with. And then he disappears. That's a curious detail, isn't it? We'll come back to that. They say to one another, were not our hearts burning within us as he opened the scriptures to us? Now, I think this is a really important detail of the story, because you see, sometimes we understand or we begin to grasp something here, and only later does the light dawn here. Do you know what I mean? I remember a lady who came to a church. It wasn't Bookham, it was the church before that, who started coming into the church. Interestingly, she went on to be a parish nurse, just for interest. But at this point in her journey, she wasn't a Christian, but for one reason or another, she started coming into church on a Sunday morning. And I remember that she used to sit there and she cried, she just wept. When the worship began, when our songs were sung, she started to cry. And I remember she caught me afterwards one morning. She says, I don't know what's happening to me, but when I sit here and we sing these songs, I cry. Sometimes it seems our body gets something, it gets a hold of something, while our minds remain foggy. Sometimes we need to catch up with what's been happening to us. I think this is maybe a helpful thought when we think about how people come to Christ. There may be an instinct sometimes to push somebody to that point of commitment, of saying yes to Jesus. We've given them the gospel and you need to respond. Sometimes, often, there is a journey to be made where things are going on inside. And then the moment is right. Things become clear. There is revelation, recognition, and we're able to say yes to Christ. It's always felt important to me for us to give room for people to journey. Because God gives us room to journey, to respond to him. He doesn't always come straight at us with who he is and all the truth about who he is. He doesn't overwhelm us with the truth of who he is, but sometimes just gets up alongside us and walks with us, gets us talking, gets into our conversations and into our thinking. God gives us room to journey. Sometimes he might say, come on! How foolish, how slow. Sometimes there is that urging to take hold of what's being given. But that within a patient, getting alongside, teaching, journeying together. And then he disappeared. That's curious, isn't it? Reminds us that actually the risen Jesus now is unlimited, not limited in the way we are by being able to get around. He's there and then he's not there. He inhabits a new body. He is risen, but it's not a resuscitation, it's new. And that may have been partly why they didn't recognize him. It's quite important to get a good idea about the risen body of Jesus. Later on, he'll be offered a bit of fish and he'll tuck into it to say that, and he says to them, I'm not a ghost, I'm not something ethereal, I'm real, you can touch me. So Jesus now inhabits a body that eventually is recognizable, is not restricted by locked doors. He can come and go as he pleases, but still he is embodied. A body that can live on earth and in heaven. And a pointer to our own resurrected selves, that what Jesus has done in redeeming us is secure for us a future where one day we too will be gloriously raised and have a body like his. We will not be ghosts. We will not be part of some ethereal, wispy existence. C.S. Lewis famously said that our existence now, how we live today, are the shadowlands. The shadowlands just wait for the fullness of life to come. It will seem as if this, how solid it feels, was mere shadow compared to the life ahead. So let's get rid of notions of ghosts and spirits and some vague existence in heaven. What's to come will be glorious. And what we see in Jesus, in these appearances to his disciples, is for us a taste of what's to come. He is the first fruits of our future. That's quite exciting, isn't it, when you stop and think about it? Hey, we're going to have communion now, and Paul's going to lead us in a song. While we're singing, we're going to grab the children and the young people and get them to come back in, because what we're doing involves us all, the whole family, young and old. So let's, I don't know who's going to go through. Perhaps Sarah, if you just go and bring them through as we worship, as we come together to the table.